Hello. Welcome to the channel. Today we will be talking about WPF, MVVM, all this acronym, um, as well as caliburn.Micro. So from the last video, if you did not see the last video, we made this application. What this application pretty much does is it uses the power of caliburn.Micro to do some data binding on our control. So we have this text box, we have a text block, we have a text box, and we have a button. This button, as you could see, is disabled. But as soon as you type something, let's say A, as you could see, the button is now enabled. So this is the kind of features that you could get from caliburn.Micro. So now we can say hello Alfred. If you click on it, then you say okay. So this, we were able to achieve this using caliburn.Micro type of MVVM naming convention binding. So this is literally, we were able to do this with this method, and we were able to send a notify property change. But if you haven't seen this video, go ahead and check my last prior video before this video. You will be able to see that video. Now let's tackle another important aspect of caliburn.Micro. So let's see, what is that? Reload? I don't know. Let's cancel out of this. So let's open back this up. What is that? Interesting. Okay, so let's open. What we want to tackle is another type of binding. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. So what I will typically do will be to right click here on my solution and add a new project. And so we want a WPF application. Go ahead and select it. So we will say student WPF caliburn.Micro student WPF. Yep, let's just leave that name as is. Then .NET 5 is fine. Now if you have seen the last video, I'll put the link on the description. You will be able to follow you will know exactly what I'm doing when I go ahead and delete the main window. I'm deleting it. You know, let's right click here and say delete. I deleted it permanently. And if you didn't see the last video, you're probably like, why did you do that? So now let's go to the app Xamarin and go ahead and delete that. Then what we want to do is this is caliburn.Micro configuration. You need to do this setup for caliburn.Micro. So this is the last project. So because I want to make it easy for myself, I am going to go to the app.Xamarin, go ahead and copy that, because we know it works. We are not just copying blindly. We know it works. We used it before. Then go back to this new app, go ahead and paste it here, and we are good. So now we want to create a bootstrapper class. So I'm going to copy this name, Ctrl C. Let's collapse this, then go ahead and right click here. Go ahead. I know you probably said, what did I just do? So right click here, add class, go ahead and call it bootstrapper. So this is all right. So now we have a bootstrapper class. Go ahead and make it a public. All right, so now because I don't want to spend too much time typing out the startup things for the bootstrapper. This is all typical for caliburn.Micro. I'm going to go back here, go here and copy all of these essentially. So I want all of these, so I'm going to do copy, then go back to this new project, bootstrapper class, go ahead and paste it there. Hope you're following so far. So this is all the setup things that you need to do for Caliburn.Micro. Remember, we haven't installed Caliburn.Micro to this new project that we started. So now look at it. If I go ahead and hit a control dot, I think I've noticed that I have to do it twice for it to get it. So you see, it says they generate this, but I really wanted to suggest that I should install Caliburn.Micro. So let me do it again. Here you go. It happens every single time. I have to do it twice before it will be able to suggest the right, well, suggest what I wanted to install. So now we have Caliburn.Micro here, and life looks good here. So now we are telling the bootstrapper to open up this ShellViewModel, but we do not have a ShellViewModel. So this is where we will go ahead and create our 3 folders for our MVVM. So right click here, add folder. I'm going to call it a views. All right, add another one, and you, for now, you want to create this folder manually, like kind of like this. I will show you what I mean. So if you go ahead and copy this folder and paste it twice to rename it, I find that it breaks something. I still need to troubleshoot that. So I just, to avoid that, what I do is create it manually like I do here. Just create it one at a time. It will only take you 3 times to create these 3 folders. So now we want to take care of this ShellViewModel, right? So go ahead and copy the name and go ahead and go to your ViewModel, add class. Now I want to call it ShellViewModel, and they go ahead and make it public. Alright, so now we should be able to go back to this bootstrapper and add the ShellViewModel. So right now I want to add the reference it to this class. Click on it and this should be happy. Now let's go ahead and close everything, every tab. Yes, save it and close everything. Yep. And the next thing I want to do, now we have the ShellViewModel, right? So the next thing we probably want to tackle is having the view, essentially the UI for the user to use, right? So let's go ahead and right click here and add Windows. All right, so we will call it ViewModel, ShellView. Now this naming is very, very important. The naming convention is very, very important for Caliburn.Micro. So now that we have the view model, let's go back to our ShellViewModel, and for Caliburn.Micro, so what we want to do is make a students that we need to display. Let's go ahead and go back here, and let's make it side by side so that it will be easier for me to see. So let's define grade column. Why is Zeno suggesting it? Oh, I know why. Grade. Yep, column definition. So now I want, so let's do width 20. So I am going to copy this and paste it to make 2 of them. Then I'm going to make another one in the middle, but this time I will make it auto. Now let's go ahead and make the font size big just so we can see it. Makes sense so far? Okay. So this auto, we want a couple of it. Control C, Control V, V, V. Let me do about 4 of it. I don't I don't know exactly how this will take the shape of, but let's keep going. Grade view. I did column. Now let's do role definition. Go ahead and do role definition. Height. Let's do 20 again. Control C, Control V, then go ahead and do this auto. So now let's Control C, Control V. Alright, so I have a couple of these set up. So basically I'm making grids where I want my controls to be. So now we want, let's go ahead and start adding. So we want a combo box. Combo box. Let's tell it what role to be in. I want it to be in row number 1. Let's do 1. I like to start with column. Grade column. Let's do number 1 as well. So right now it's over there. So let's go ahead and do X name. So this is where caliburn.Micro. So whatever name you give it, so let's call it student or student. Let's call it student. So we are able to select a student. The next one is selected item. So whenever we select an item in the combo box, this is what we want to happen. Selected item. We want it to bind path. We want it to bind to selected student. Selected student. Yep. Now we want the mode to be one way to source. So it will basically change the object. Then display name. Wait a minute. So we want this to be this. So we will get out of the selected item. So now we want display name to be display name path to be name. Let's go ahead and make minimum width. Let's say 100. So it's a little bigger here. I don't know if you can see it here. Let's make it 200 because some names might be really big. So 200 looks good. So now we want, whenever we select any name, any student name in the combo box, we should be able to see all the information, all the properties about the student below. So what we want to do is to make a couple text blocks. I believe we are done with this combo box, so let's get out of this. Then go ahead and make a text blocks, a text block. So now we want it to be in grade column. That one is in 1. We want it to be in the same one. However, the grade role, we want it to be in number 2. And let's go ahead and minimize this so you can see here better. Alright, so now we want the x dot names is equals to, so let's call it selected. This will make sense in a little bit. So the selected selected student, I don't know why I keep calling an employee. The selected student will be an object, so it's essentially a class. So inside that object we will have name, right? So now we want the first text blocks to be name. Control C. So now we can increase the role. Let's say 2, sorry, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we can change this to age maybe, and let's go ahead and make an ID here. We can do an ID here, age here, then hobby, gender, and let's see, what else, let's stick with that for now. So essentially we'll have about 2, 3. So we already have 3 here, so let's do 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have about five rows. So we need 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Control C, 6, right? So that's 1 is combo box, 6. So we need about Control C. So essentially we have 6, 7, 8. We have 8 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1 too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you know how I came up with 8. So we have combo box and number 1. We have these 20s our pattern. So it will be kind of like a separation between top and bottom. So then we have 6 inside. So essentially 6 of our content, then 2 pattern. Now let's see, that looks about right. So now we want to go ahead and create all this info, create it here in our ShellViewModel. So let's go ahead and copy this just so it will help us create this. So let's go ahead and paste it here. Go ahead and just so it's easier. So now I have all this jagged out. The easiest way that I know to fix it is just to click here and it will clean it up. I know there's a shortcut for it. So here we go. So now we want to create students, our student class. So in order for caliburn.Micro to automatically bind this, we want to use a bindable collection of student model, right? So now we want to call it student, and we want it to be we want it to be get return. We want to be a student. So I am doing a dash sign because set because the short one will be used for something soon. Here we go. So now we can, so now we don't have the student model, but we should be able to create it very soon. So this is a property, right? So this is a public version of it. So let's go ahead and create the private private bindable. Let's go ahead and add this bindable collection, control dot, using caliburn.Micro. All right, so now let's go ahead and call bindable collection. So now we want it to be student. Now we want it to be dash student, new. All right, so this should fix this, right? Student. Okay, so now we want, you know what, let's go ahead and this, I'm surprised that this is not Ctrl C, Ctrl V. All right, so now we need to create a class for students. So let's go back to Solution Explorer. Let's go ahead and create the model. So this is the student is our model, right? So let's go ahead and copy this and add class, and let's call it student. Make it a public. At least that should start fixing some issues here. So now we should be able to conduct, and using our name, our project name, and the folder name. So that should fix this student model. And now we actually want to create our data inside our student model. So right here, let's paste this here. Prop tab int id prop tab. The name is string. Let's call it a string name. Then let's go then prop tab. Let's call it a age. Age is int. Age prop tab. Let's call it hobby. Let's call it string hobby. Let's prop tab. Let's call it gender string gender. All right, so now we have all our properties. Let's go ahead and remove this. That was why I needed this, just so I don't forget the spelling of all our properties. So now we have that. So going back to our ShellViewModel, I still don't know why this is erroring our student mode. Oh, I think okay, so we need to change this name. The naming convention got me here, so go ahead and rename this, hopefully student model. All right, yes. Yes, I do make mistakes, a lot of it. Okay, moving on. So we change this to student model. Our class now is called student model. Then going back to ShellViewModel right here, so we need this to be student model. This change it to perfect. So now we want, I still don't know why this is erroring out. So why a namespace cannot directly contain members such as field and method? What are you talking about? Okay, let's see. Oh, so I need to, are you kidding me? So put this bracket here. Everyone should be happy now. Okay. All right, so now we are happy. I just had it in a namespace instead of a public class. Okay, perfect. So now we have our property for our student model. That looks really good. So now let's go ahead and create another property. This will take care of the combo box. So property, let's go ahead and do Propfull. So we have our student model. So we will go ahead and call it dash selected student. So now we want to call this the same name but with a capital S. That looks good, but however on our set we want to notify when the property changes, when the selection changes. We want to notify property change selected student. All right, so now it will probably start screaming because I am not inheriting the interface. So let's go ahead and say control dot. It doesn't show anything that I was expecting. Let's do that again. Nope. Okay, so let's go ahead and inherit screen from my caliburn.Micro. All right, so this notify property change. Here we go. All right, looking good so far. So with this code, what do we expect? So whenever we initialize this, let's go ahead and create a constructor that adds. Let's go ahead and create a constructor that adds CTO, that adds values to the student, right? So let's go ahead and say student dot add. So we want to say new student model. ID is 1, age is 20. Let's say that person is in college. Name is I am let's just say first name. I am 20 years. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. Let's do 30 years. Gender is male. That's a string, so male. Hobby is coding. All right, let's close it out. So now we have one item in our student. So how many students do we want to have? You could have as many as you need, but let's go ahead and stop right there. Let's go ahead and do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is fine. Let's go ahead and change the age to 4 to 20. So let's go ahead and change the names. John, Amade, Chooks, Calvin, Emily. All right, so let's do a female here, and everyone is male. All right, let's do that. So everyone's hobby cannot be coding, so let's go ahead and change some of these. John like eating, running, swimming, reading, jumping. All right, perfect. So now we are adding items to our student, and when we do, this student will be bound to ShellViewModel. This student will be bound to our combo box, which is called student. And guess what? When we select an item, that binding will go to selected student, which is, if we go back to our ShellViewModel, which is selected student right here. And when that happens, it will notify the selected student property, which is essentially this object student model. And guess what? Our text blocks is inherits from selected student dash id, which is this, the id and the name and the age. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. So right now we are still hooked up to our previous code. Let's right click here and say setup startup page. So now we can run this new code or this new project. Of course I have an error. What's the fun of coding if I don't have an error? So in our app.xaml, I always do this. I forgot to close out this area. So if I go ahead and hit a greater than sign symbol here, that should fix it. So now we can run it again. All right, perfect. So the first thing we want to make sure is that if we have our we have our students all here, and it's bound by name, which is something that we didn't cover. So it's actually the display name is name. So we can change it to maybe hobby or age or whatever, but let's leave it as name. So display name is name, and we can select Alfred, and we have this the ID is 1 Alfred, age, hobby, and gender. So if we go to Emily, the ID is 6, Emily 10. So this is like, you know, we hardly wrote any code to do the powerful binding feature that Caliburn allows us to do. So this is one of the reasons why I am starting to learn and use caliburn.Micro. So I hope this was useful. And by the way, if you have any question or need something specific, go ahead and put it in the comment area. Don't forget to subscribe. Before we do that, let's run this one more time because this is so cool to see, you know, the magic that happens behind caliburn.Micro. They do mention it. The reason why we have all this magic happening is because we have the naming convention set up really well. So caliburn.Micro knows to find the model, the view model, and the view, and there, and caliburn.Micro is able to put all those together and bind the data to the control. So let's run it again. I don't know why I double click there. So if I select, I have all the names, select the chunks, and we can see the name, the ID, the age, hobby, and the gender. So that's all I have for today. Hope this was helpful. I will talk to you later. Bye bye.